G'day guys, ZiggyD here, back with another Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls beta video for you guys. I've had a few requests, people asking questions about what it's worth to be farming now if they're still in Diablo 3 vanilla, don't have access to the beta, but want to prepare for Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls as much as possible. And I certainly understand that, and I did a fair bit of that myself. In the lead up to Reaper of Souls, we kind of had some clues given to us that things like brimstones might be useful for transmogrification and a bunch of other different stuff like that, and we saved up a heap of things like gems and crafting materials and stuff like that. But I'm here today to tell you guys that pretty much all of that is useless. So let's talk about what's useless and why, and what is actually worth saving up. Now, straight up, the first thing that is worth saving up and getting as much as possible of is gold. You get a fair bit of gold from doing bounties, so that's this new adventure mode system where you go around and hunt down things and get gold. But based on my transmogrification and enchanting habits so far in Reaper of Souls, if you're going to be doing a fair bit of that, if you plan on doing it, and I think pretty much everybody is, it's looking like the game's going to be very self-found oriented, and there's going to be lots of enchanting happening, then you want as much gold as possible. I came in here with about 120 million, and I've been playing for a couple of days, and only been at level 70 doing a lot of enchanting for about 2 days, and I've already spent about 40 million on enchanting. It's pretty expensive. Enchanting like a high level legendary costs upwards of 1 million gold each enchant try, and you might not always get the stats you want. It's very rewarding, but it is costly, so try and save up that gold as much as possible. That's the first and one of the few things that is actually very useful. So what's not useful next up? Now, one of the things we're saving up a lot of is gems, and I'm sad to say, saving up your gems is not really worth it. Don't even try and craft Marquise gems, because as you can see, look at all of these Marquise gems I have here. Yep, that's right, from 60 onwards in Reaper of Souls at the moment, in the beta. Things might change, but at the moment, Marquise gems are drops, and very common drops at that. They drop as much as squares. And just to give you an idea of how easy these are to get, look at all these Marquise gems in here. Not to mention a new tier even. We have Imperial as well. These guys also drop from the baggies at level 70, and they also drop from mobs and stuff like that. A little bit less common, but the next tier up from Marquise, so there's no point hoarding any squares or anything like that. Don't even try and spend any of your gold crafting Marquise, because you're going to want that gold for enchanting instead of making those gems, because these are super easy to get. Now there's even as you can see here, we've got royal tier 1s here and flawless royal tiers, and you can see that this combines 3 flawless imperial topaz, so we have to craft our way up further from this, and we're just going to be doing this from the drops. So yeah, you're going to want to save that gold and get ready to craft higher tiers of gems than what you have currently. Now, the next thing is crafting mats. These are useful if you plan on leveling a Crusader through adventure mode and crafting your own gear, which is something you might do if you're interested in playing the Crusader. So these have some moderate amount of use. I had approximately 500 of these guys, and about 3 something of these guys, and some of these guys, and I did use a few of these, but you don't need that many. You certainly don't need many stacks of these. I probably don't even need 1 stack of these to get me through leveling the Crusader. I've almost max leveled my Crusader now. I'm out of the point now where I need to use any of these now. As you can see, there's new tiers of all of these crafting materials. We've got the new legendary one that you get from salvaging legendaries. There's a new version of demonic essences that drop from elites. We've got Death's Breath now. We've got new versions of the Tome of Secrets, scholarly writing, so you don't need to save up any of these guys. New versions of iridescent tears, the veiled crystals, new versions of exquisite essence, the arcane dust there. So new versions of all that stuff. As a little side note, we've also got these common debris and reusable parts. This is pre-level 60, and this is post-level 60 from salvaging white items. So there's no... Before you think that you might want to start hoarding white items to salvage, they only salvage into the lesser useful reusable parts, which are only useful for leveling. They're not useful for later game. Anything after 60 in Reaper Soul that drops goes to the actual fairly useful common debris. Okay, so moving away from mats and golds and things like that, we actually do have some gear that's actually somewhat useful to save. There's two things that I say that's really worth farming up. Actually, three things if you include Paragon levels, because Paragon XP does indeed convert over. I'm sure most of you guys already know this now, and things like getting extra move speed and getting extra all resist and stuff like that in here is actually very useful. So if you want to spend some time getting some Paragon XP, you will be rewarded for it. That said though, it's more fun farming Paragon XP in Reaper of Souls, so maybe you just want to wait for that. But let's go back to gear. There are some pieces of gear that will be fairly useful to have moving into Reaper of Souls. Anything that's reliant on main stats, so dexterity, vitality, armor, and even all resist to an extent, are not worth keeping. Things like the Vile Wards and things like that are based on these main stats are going to be upgraded within about 1 to 2 levels. At about 61, I think I found my first pair of shoulder upgrades, and these were up over my account-bound, almost perfect crafted rare shoulders. So you don't want to be saving up any of those guys. They're all going to be scaled up heaps. You get so much more dexterity, vitality, main stats, things like that. And as you can see, I got like 500 on my gloves there, and this is even as high as you can get. You can get much higher than this, 744 on my puzzle ring there, for example. So anything like that ages very, very, very quickly. However, there are some things that are pretty useful. Obviously, weapons are not useful, but if we look here, we've got my witching owl. This is my level 60 witching owl. This is still pretty useful. I've not managed to find or craft a belt upgrade, and not for lack of trying. I've been trying. But it's pretty hard to scale past things like attack speed and crit damage, especially when it's in a slot that you can't normally get. 80 all resist on this is actually still pretty useful as well, so if you have even like 70 or 60 all resist, that's actually still pretty good. Like, for example, the gems we add into our gear now give 66 all resist, and that's a nice buff still at endgame. So that's going to be still pretty useful, but your main stats are essentially useless. So when you're looking at items, when you're appraising them, you're looking for these percentage stats. The reason for this is, let's look at this. This is also a level 60 amulet here that I had from Diablo 3 Vanilla, and will probably not be able to upgrade for quite a long time. The reason for this is that things like attack speed, crit hit damage, and crit hit chance all don't grow in Reaper of Souls. They still have their same caps, so amulets can still roll a maximum of 10, a maximum of crit hit damage of 100, things like that. So none of this scales, all of this stuff is just as useful. Now, because this amulet is a Trifecta amulet, it has attack speed, crit hit damage, crit hit chance, it's pretty useful. It scales extremely well. Obviously, the dexterity and vitality isn't great, and the damage is okay. It scales okay, but really not that special. Mostly it's about those percentage stats, because these still add up. We still have the same amount of crit chance that we had in Diablo 3 Vanilla, so these sorts of items are very good to have. So I have my witching hour, I have my amulet here, my Trifecta amulet, and even my Mempo has kind of lasted pretty well because of its all resist, attack speed, and life percentage there. That also scales pretty well, and because it has a socket as well. Also some all resist on there, and it's also worth mentioning that with the enchanting system you can actually give these guys some more longevity essentially. With this Mempo, for example, I was able to craft a vitality on this. I was able to improve the vitality roll greatly. As you can see, 363 is way beyond what a Mempo can normally roll, and by the same token, if you have an amulet or something like that that's not a Trifecta but it has a really nice crit hit damage roll and a crit hit chance roll, then you might as well hold on to that as well if you want to save a bit of money, because it's pretty easy to roll attack speed or your third from your Trifecta stat on there. This attack speed was not on this amulet originally. I was able to craft that onto there. So you can improve the longevity of these items. Just get some nice base items with some of these nice percentage ones, and these will see you throughout the leveling process and even well into the 70s. Pretty hard. If you get some Trifecta rings, some Trifecta amulets, and things like the Witching Hour and Mempo and stuff like that, they're all going to scale really well. Just stay away from main stats, because try not to sink too much money into those, and save your money instead for enchanting all the sick new loot you're going to be getting. Now, something people talked a fair bit about in the lead up to Reaper of Souls was Life Leech. Since that no longer drops on gear and it's not available on skills and things like that, people were hypothesizing that Life Leech gear was going to be very, very valuable. Things like, bar belts with Life Leech or weapons with Life Leech might still be useful maybe, or other items with Life Leech, especially because weapons tend to lose their effectiveness in terms of damage pretty quickly. But I'm going to tell you straight up, Life Leech is not effective. It actually scales down. Once you level up a little bit in Reaper of Souls, it actually goes to about, I think it's like 10% effectiveness. and then by level 70, your life leech simply does not work at all. So there's no point saving up any life leech gear if you were trying to hoard some life leech gear for the life leech nerf. It's been fully, well and truly nerfed. You cannot use that anymore, so there's no point keeping up with that. So I think that just about covers everything. Remember that this is very early in the closed beta, and these things might change. They might end up changing things like gem drop rates, things like that could change, and other things could change. Just keep this in mind, but always do your own research, take a little bit of consideration, but I think safe bets are definitely going to be saving up gold, Paragon XP, and I think Trifecta items are still going to be really good in Ripper of Souls. They're all pretty much hand down guaranteed, I believe. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.